Anybody else got questions? Joel, with the bus operators, you did mention that you had consultations. Was there a large public consultation held?
Yes, I mean, Shelvin, if you remember, this whole process started somewhere in 2017 when an independent review committee was set up. And as the CEO of FCCC, I was chairing that committee. We undertook a national consultation where more than 13,000 submissions were received from people. This is apart from the submissions from the bus industry. So, yes.
Are those tactics that were employed by Fiji Bus Operators Associations in the days leading up to that? Some bus operators might think that they were able to coerce you FCCC into announcing the bus fare.
No, I think it is, I have time and time again highlighted that the process will not be rushed despite mounting pressure. And as I've said in my statement, despite mounting pressure and whatever the industry was going through, whether it was genuine or was it done to try and coerce the FCCC. I mean, it should be known not just to the bus operators but to all stakeholders and all Fijians. The FCCC will not be coerced by anybody. We owe a duty of care to the Fijian people and will ensure that we do the due diligence. And after only robust analysis of the financials and looking at all factors, did we then come up with a determination.
Mm-hmm. Now, you did mention that you wanted a few things to improve by bus operators.
Yes.
You highlighted it lightly. Yeah. Could you go more in depth on those issues?
Yes. So, I mean, there's two issues that we raised. One was the need to have full and fair information that is available to allow the FCCC to be able to scrutinize the operations of this company to ensure that they're operating at efficient levels. The Fijian people should not be made to pay for anybody's inefficiencies, and that these accounts are up to date. The model itself has got a list of all the requirements that's needed, everything from audited financial statements to the demarcation of or the segmentation of different expenses such as depreciation, investments into new buses, the repayment rates. We're looking at the pay kilometer cost as well. So we want to be able to peg the bus fares as close to the cost of service. But not only looking at cost of service, we'll look at four key pillars when we look at reviews. We're looking at, of course, affordability, and under affordability, we'll look at how much people are willing to pay. So we also consider the income dispersion of people in different geographical areas. We look at reliability because you could have affordable fares. Fares could be 20 cents tomorrow, but if there's no buses running, it means nothing. So you look at affordability and then you look at accessibility. You look at the reliability of service to ensure that as routes are set, buses are operating as per the set routes, whether it's peak or off-peak travel, whether it's peak season or off-peak season. And four is, of course, sustainability. You need to have an industry that is able to sustain itself. And these are the key pillars that we'll utilize for any review. The second was, of course, to look at the overall governance structure of the Fiji Bus Operators Association. Much like every other body that we deal with, we require that if an association is bringing on views, it must represent the industry. Unfortunately, when we met with some operators on an individual basis who are members of the association, we found that they had issues that were not flagged by the Fiji Bus Operators Association. One such issue was by Promote Buses in Lambasa. There was a determination done in 2015, implemented in 2016, but this was basically a adjustment of VAT by LTA. And this determination led to Vanua Levu fares from stage 5 to 44 becoming much lower than Viti Levu fares. So if you do a comparison of current fares, Vanua Levu fares are cheaper and the passenger loading is less, the cost of operation is higher compared to some Viti Levu operators. As such, we were able to go back and look at it and see that it needed to be corrected, and we've made that adjustment. However, this issue was not brought to us by the Fiji Bus Operators Association. It was brought to us directly by Promote Buses. And so we want the views of all operators to be heard clearly. Now, if there's an association that cannot echo the voice of all its members, we are then concerned. So we have decided that the Fiji Bus Operators Association needs to get their governance systems in order. They've got a system of, I think currently it has to do with the manner in which they organize. They've got a system of, I think the number of buses you own is the number of votes you get. So one of the operators that came and met me just early this week said to me that in the last elections that was held, the 30 operators voted for one person and 6 operators voted for one person, but the 6 operators had 800 votes because they collectively own 800 buses. And so the majority was decided by the number of buses that you own. And as such, they also expressed concerns that it was not fully representative of the views of the entire industry. And if you are going to deal with an association, they must demonstrate principles of good governance. And as such, we require that the Fiji bus operators get their governance systems in order. And all bus companies, and this is a requirement of antitrust laws, which is in Fiji we call it competition laws. As an association, you can't meet and collude and say, this is what we want the price to be, because you would need to allow for competitive forces to be able to set differential rates. Having in mind that the fares that are being set is a ceiling, it's not a fixed fare, it's a ceiling fare. So operators on competitive routes can, using cost leadership, can set different fares. One example would be if you are say a student that is trying to board a bus somewhere near USP to Suva City. Now you've got 3 operators to choose from. You've got Central Transport, you've got Rewanga buses and Nasese buses. Now, if these 3 operators are in cahoots to say we will charge a set fare, you're eliminating the competitive pressures that would either otherwise exist in the supply side of the market to be able to deliver the best deal for that student that's standing there. So if you get together and decide on what a set fare should be, you're killing competitive forces. As such, there's a requirement that each individual operator needs to furnish their own submission to the FCCC for the next review.
Now, the 7 cents, which is a maximum ceiling, you say, so this means that the fare would be set by the individual operator.
So in this review, it's 7 cents. So currently the stage fare for stage 1 is say 68 cents
Yes.
plus 7 cents. Stage 2, whatever the fare is, plus 7 cents. Stage 3, whatever the fare is, plus 7 cents.
But that's the maximum.
Maximum fares, yes.
The individual operator
Are free to set it at whatever rate they want. They can even go to 50 cents.
But will you be releasing a schedule?
So the schedule of the maximum fares is definitely will be part of the authorization. That will be published as well. It will become public document. However, it just for clarity purposes, these are the maximum fares. And we hope to see more competitive pressures in the market.
So with the 30,000 submissions that were made from
30.
the public?
30.
30.
1-3.
1-3. How many favoured the increase of bus fees?
Well, I'll have to dig that up for you. I can send it to you by email if you want it.
Don't you think that the poor will be more affected with the increase of bus fare?
Well, it is a general statement. Would you be able to clarify and tell me who do you class as the poor, and which people are you talking about that would be affected? And again, I take you back to the 4 pillars of any review. You need to look at affordability, you need to look at reliability, you need to look at accessibility and sustainability. All those considerations need to be made. The FCCC is here to ensure, and I've said this previously, we're here to ensure that the rights of Chone in the village that has no idea on how bus fare indices model works, they rely on the FCCC to ensure that we do it independently and in a fair manner, and that is precisely what we've done. As I've said to you, the submissions were to increase fares up to $1.50 for stage 1 from 68 cents or to $1 for stage 1 and 2. Now, the FCCC will always ensure that we undertake a robust analysis, scrutinize the financials in depth, and ensure that we come up with what is fair.
Joe, would you say that if the 7 cents wasn't given, would there have been dangers of any of these operators closing down?
Well, again, Shelvin, an operator closing down, revenue has got one part is just one component of it. The question that the media also needs to ask these operators that are coming up with the views that they can no longer operate, you need to ask, what were their management structures like? Were they practicing good corporate governance? Has anybody in the media asked any of these operators, what was your governance structure like? I mean, the media also needs to be responsible and stop sensationalizing stories.
Definitely.
You need to be responsible journalists. You need to ask all the questions, because there's more than one factor that affects the viability of a going concern. Any accountant will tell you that. Any businessman will tell you that. I mean, if you're in the habit of sensationalizing the story, then of course you will take one aspect and say it. But revenue is just one part of it. What about the management of the company? Were there proper structures and systems set in place? Did they have a proper accounting system? Were they looking at cost control? Was it a result of theft? Was it a result of poor management? What was the reality? So I think the answer to your question is really another question.
Yeah. But have you found that these bus operators actually needed management structure set in the
and that is why we have said to apply to qualify for the next review, you need to set your proper governance structures. We understand most of these are family-owned companies. There are some bus companies that are organized very well, and there are some that are very poorly organized. And there are companies that are doing well because of their proper governance systems, and that is one part of it. So basically, that is one of the requirements that we've put out. Again, I'll reiterate, if a company is inefficient, the Fijian people will not be made to pay for their inefficiency.
Lovely.
Joel, you mentioned that, given the example of the 3 bus operation along from USP, the Mississippi Central Bus, and you did mention the lack of competition. Now, we know that lack of competition also means that these businesses will not be able to contribute significantly to the Fijian economy. Would you say the same thing for bus operators in the country?
Well, you're making a sweeping statement. How do you justify they can't make a positive impact to the Fijian economy?
With lack of competition, obviously.
No, I mean, competition has to do with when competitive forces in the market are prevalent, then it means better. I mean, it's linked to consumer welfare. Basic economics tells you a good competitive market will increase consumer welfare. So I don't get your question as to how these companies will contribute to the economy.
No, their lack of competition.
Yeah, how?
That's my question. Their lack of competition.
So I'm still not clear what you're asking.
So
the lack of competition?
Yeah, within these bus operators.
Yeah.
Does it? Would you agree that it doesn't contribute significantly to the Fijian economy?
Well, we'll need to do a study on that, because you can't make sweeping statements to say you're talking about a specific scenario. These 3 bus companies operating on a route from USP to Suva, whether the lack of competition is causing some deadweight loss in the market, or is it shifting producer and consumer surplus. I think that is a study, and I mean, I would encourage academics out there to go out and do studies on this to find out if it's actually happening.
Joel, coming back to those 3 bus companies, you said in case they decided to collude. I mean, if the company is providing, is there a mechanism that just say discourages collusion?
Yes, I mean, it's a breach of the FCCC Act. It's considered price fixing, and we have reiterated this point to the Fiji Bus Operators Association that the association cannot meet and discuss pricing issues. It's a basic antitrust concept. It's not a Fijian concept, it's a global antitrust concept. It's an anti-competitive practice that should not be entered into.
Lovely.
My next question, Joel. You also mentioned that there is poor governance system within these bus operators. Now, whose responsibility is it exactly to monitor this bus operation and to ensure that their management system are on track, that they practice good governance as well?
So, I mean, I did not say they have poor governance, because then it's making an absolute statement. I said they need to. I said they need to improve their governance. So there is a wide array of companies. There's more than 50 companies that operate in the. That have either one thing or another to do with bus operations. What they need to do is ensure that their governance systems are, and whose responsibility it is. The Companies Act will tell you it's the fiduciary duties of directors to ensure that proper governance systems are maintained. So it is a fiduciary duty of directors. So the question again, the media should be asking, if a company is collapsing, did the directors do the fiduciary duty? I mean, most recently we had the issue about Dominion buses. Did anybody from the media go and ask the question on what were the directors doing? Did they exercise their fiduciary duty?
Joe,
Yeah.
you brought up Dominion Transport.
Yes.
In the Western Division, we've had for Nandi Lotoka, 1,500 new taxi permits. There's about, in Lotoka alone, there's more than 400 private cars that operate transport. And in a lot of cases, these cars go ahead of the buses and pick up passengers.
Yeah.
So, to some extent, the bus operators say that they have been impacted by that. You're talking about governance and all that, but in terms of revenue, it has affected.
Yeah, so in that, I've had those concerns with from the bus operators directly, and I'll tell you what I've told them. I said, please, again, don't make sweeping statements. Don't say, there's buses going. So you'll find, now if you talk to these bus operators, you'll find what they're doing is they're actually identifying the number plates, they're doing their part. And there's been instances where they've referred it to LTA and LTA has taken action. Now, it is an enforcement issue that you're asking. Now, of course, enforcement needs to take place. Enforcement needs to be there to ensure that all these illegal operations are dealt with. And again, if it is a specific issue where there's a specific issue that somebody is doing it, in the case of Dominion buses, I specifically asked the director, I said, you identify the routes that you feel that's happening and get in touch with LTA and ensure that enforcement officers are there. And LTA put enforcement officers in there and he'll tell you, if you talk to him, he'll tell you what happened. So I think it's a matter of collaborating and working together. The enforcement authority here for these other permits and illegal operators is the Land Transport Authority, and a question that they would better answer as to how they are looking at enforcement.
Also, with in terms of revenue again, there's places in Tavua regularly where there's it's already a difficult terrain to operate in, and they've said the operating costs have increased because of spare parts costs, etc. Plus the fact that they're operating on roads that are not ideal. So have those been taken into consideration?
Yes, I mean, you have to look at it in a holistic manner, and that is why we say that if you see the requirement for the next review cycle, what we've said is companies must individually make their submission, simply because of the point that you are raising, that different companies have different business dynamics, they operate in different routes, they have they organize differently. Somebody operates their company out of their own property, somebody leases a property. So somebody's got a big garage having compliance with qualms, the others don't. So the business dynamics for different operators on different routes is significantly different, and that is why they need to make those representations. And I agree there are more than one factor that deals with the viability and the sustainability of companies. And what we've said to the association and the individual operators that we've met with is that when they do raise the issue as an independent commission, we will be able to follow up on some of the issues that they've raised and try and assist them as best as we can.
Joel, my next question. Given that this bus fare will be, especially for school children, will be activated in the next term, their budget allocations by the Ministry of Education for students who are assisted by bus fare, is the organization in consultation with the Ministry of Education in order for students not to suffer because of this increase?
Well, when we look at anything, I'll tell you how the FCCC operates. So if we're looking at bus fares, what we've done is we identify all the stakeholders and we'll let them know what's happening. And we give them adequate time to be able to make those changes. Now, the reason the fares are effective on 10th of Feb is to allow adequate time for companies to be able to organize themselves, for the e-ticketing vendor to organize themselves, for people to be able to plan. So sufficient time is given, and if you look at the effective date for student fares, it's 4th May, so there's more than enough time for anybody to adjust to it.
But the Ministry of Education with a fixed budget allocated for these students who are assisted, Are they aware of these?
Well, I think it's a question that you ought to ask the ministry whether they are okay with the increase. The FCCC again is an independent commission and we make decisions independently. The government has made that commitment and you need to ask the government if they'll honor their commitment. I'm certain they will, but you need to ask them. That's a question for them, not for me.
So you just raise it and they will have to.
Yeah, I mean, we make an independent decision. Again, the essence of saying the word independent is without any influence from anybody. And that is why I said we will not be rushed into the process. That was the whole point of saying we won't be rushed in. There is no duress on FCCC to do it quickly, to do it late, what quantum should go up, what quantum should not go up. And we've made a determination that is fair to both the travelling public and the operators. Any other stakeholders that's there, like the Minister of Education, will need to adjust to them. It's simple. I can't be answering questions for the ministry, no for government. We are an independent commission.
Any more questions? No, I believe that brings to the end of the press conference. Please note I'll be emailing you a copy of the press statement. Naka.